Hey, it's Anna from the front office, and I wanted to see if you're ready to explore your creativity with me. We did have a paint night at the Domain back in February, so I feel like we're definitely due to reevaluate that together and kind of dive into some creative work, especially since all of our new residents have finally joined us for the new leasing term. I did some researching online and I found this website, stepbysteppainting.net. It is run by a woman named Tracie, really easy to learn from. I actually learned in one sitting to paint this beautiful sunflower. I really feel like I outdid myself with this one. So I'm really excited to teach this to you guys myself so that you can learn and have this in your apartment. I feel like it is good for anyone's apartment all year round. And of course, you can never go wrong with blue and gold for WVU for Morgantown. So really excited to teach you guys how to paint this, and make sure you got the paint kits that you got from the front office, and just make yourself comfortable, something to drink, something to snack on. You're gonna have a really fun time. Make sure that you tag me in your results in the end. Domain TC is our handle on Instagram and Twitter. Would love to see how beautiful your sunflowers turn out. Really excited to do this with you guys. Thank you for joining me.
Okay, so we're going to start with this oval brush. We're going to complete this entire painting with only 2 brushes. So we've got the oval brush and then this flat angled brush. I think it's really budget friendly that we only need 2 brushes. Also, you only have to mess with 2 throughout the entire process, kind of save you some trouble there. You're going to need something circular, about 4 to 4.5 inches wide. That's going to be what we're going to trace to make the center of our flower. Kind of eyeball it, see where you want to put it. Of course, it's going to be the center, so keep that in mind. You can see my professional measurements there. About 4 finger widths from the bottom and from the left side there. Just kind of mess with it. We are going to trace it in pencil, and the paint will cover any marks that you make, so just kind of move it around and see what you think looks best. Go ahead and grab your pencil and trace that fairly lightly. Doesn't really matter how dark it is because we are going to cover it up, but just get that mark on there so you'll be able to see what you're working with. Kind of eyeball it. Just imagine that being the center of your flower with the petals coming off of it, and see if you like where it is. You can always erase it and start over if you'd like. Gonna go ahead and grab that burnt umber, the dark brown that you have in your kit, and get about a 50-cent piece size, quarter size glob of paint on there. And we're gonna grab our angled brush to work with first. Right now, we're just going to focus on filling that circle in completely with the burnt umber. Doesn't really matter the direction of the strokes that you use, just fill that circle in. Really use the angled edge of that brush to your advantage when you're filling in the circle to the edge of that circle that you drew. It will help you get it right to the edge there and have some accuracy, but it doesn't have to be a completely perfectly round circle. Okay, once we've got our circle in there, we're going to go ahead and rinse our brush out and set that aside. We will revisit that in just a little bit. Going to go ahead and grab our 2 yellows. You're going to notice that one is lighter than the other. We're going to go with the darker one first. Go ahead and get about a quarter to 50-cent piece size glob of paint on there, about the same you did with the burnt umber. We're going to grab that oval brush. Okay, we're going to go with that darker yellow shade that we had and just start with the basic outline for our first set of petals. We're going to start at the base here where it meets the brown and go from there. You're going to make it a little bit wider in the center and then bring it to a point at the end. Just kind of let your arm move freely. You are definitely going to get the hang of this. We're going to do a lot of these shapes, so you'll definitely get your practice in. See where it's mixing with that brown at the bottom? That's totally cool. Just get that basic shape in there, and we're going to go fill it all the way in later, but you'll see it's darker at the bottom where it's mixing with that brown, and that is perfect. So you want the second one to kind of overlap, just kind of meet there, how petals naturally kind of overlap each other. You can always doctor it later if you're not happy with how it looks, but we're going to do the same thing, make it wider in the center and bring it to a point at the end. I am making this kind of the biggest petal because it is the center point of our painting essentially. Just going to go around and fill in all the petals till our flower is mostly full. I do kind of turn and mess with the canvas the way that I need to get the right angle, so you don't have to keep it right on the table or right on the easel. You can just move it around however it makes you feel comfortable to do what you need to do. See, I've even got it upside down. So with these shapes on the edge, you are going to just kind of envision what it would look like if the petal continued off of the canvas and draw up to that point where you can't anymore, where the canvas ends. Alright, and this is what we're going to have at this point. Kind of a crude outline of what we're going to end up with, but it'll be polished later. So we're going to take our darker yellow and mix it with that burnt umber. Going to create kind of a golden, darker yellow that we're going to fill in the bottom of those petals with, where we mixed it with the brown already a little bit. We really don't need a lot of brown, just a little bit on the edge at a time to just change the shade a little bit. We do want it to be a difference between, like an easily visible difference between the two yellows, but not too much that it's going to be uneven. So just kind of mess around with it a little bit and see what you end up with. You can always start over if you're not happy with how the color turned out. So I like to get just a little bit of brown on the edge to start with, and we're just going to go in the bottom part of these petals and fill in with that darker shade like we started out with, where it was mixing with the brown where it wasn't dry initially. Just a little bit of brown on the edge to bring some strokes in there, bring some more definition. You don't want it to be just a flat color. You do want to kind of ensure that your strokes are going to be matching the same shape as the petals. So when you're on the left, going to kind of curve it more toward the left, and on the right, take it a little bit more of an angle that way, just to make it a more natural shape. So you can see how I'm doing that right there. And then toward the middle, just kind of do a little bit of a straighter stroke, but kind of make it match the petal. You'll see what I mean once you get started. Just going to continue filling in the bottom, probably the bottom like fourth to the bottom third of the petal. This is going to be where our shading is essentially. Just go around and fill in each one. And remember to keep your strokes going the same way that the petals are. Make it have that round shape to it. With the petals that do continue off of the edge, we're going to fill those in with our darker color almost to the edge. We do want to leave some space there to add our lighter yellow shades, but for the most part, since that's the biggest part of the petal that's going to be showing, and it's going to be mostly the darker shade. Okay, we're going to go ahead and rinse out that brush and set it aside for now. Make sure you really get in there to get that paint out so it doesn't mess up our shades later. Going to go ahead and grab that angled brush again. You do want to make sure that it is dry. You don't want it to delete our colors, so make sure you wipe it off on your paper towel, and also that makes sure that all the paint is out of it too. We are going to grab that lighter yellow now, so make sure you look at them to compare. Going to grab the lighter one. Grab a new plate. Going to put about the same size of paint that we had been, about a quarter size to a 50-cent piece size. And we're also going to get our darker yellow out as well. So once they're on the plate, you'll definitely be able to tell which one's which. Okay, with our angled brush, we're going to go ahead and dip into our darker yellow on one side and the lighter yellow on the other side. It's called double loading. And we're just going to fill in the rest of the shape of the petal. We're going to kind of start and overlap a little bit where we put that darker shade and then fill in the rest of it. The reason that we are double loading is so we get some variation in the shades of our yellow there, because, you know, plants and flowers they're natural, so they're not going to be just one flat shade. So you can see it's kind of marbled together on there, the light and dark yellow. And still make sure to have your strokes go the same way that the petals are. Just follow that same shape. Just going to keep continuing all the way around. Hey, there you go. You know, just want to overlap those two shades just a little bit. We're going to go back and kind of smooth out that transition a little bit more later. For now, we're just going to fill that in and fill up the entire petal. And we'll work on the details, the kind of refining here in a little bit. So this is our first petal that's going to go off of the edge, and we're just going to fill it in to the edge with that lighter color. And the same thing with these ones that are really cut off. Just fill in the very edge of those with the lighter shade, so that it does look like it really is continuing off of the canvas. Turn that canvas however you need to, whatever you need to do to get comfortable and do what you got to do. Alright, that's what we're going to have so far. Still looks pretty crude, but we're getting there. We're refining. Going to go ahead and do some rinsing to start over and make sure that it is completely dry. If you have any water, any excess water left over in the brush, it is going to dilute your color. We are going to keep working with this oval brush though. Now we are actually going to work on the petals in between our front petals. This is going to be our back layer to make it look more full. Going to fill in all those empty spaces. And we are going to go with that same golden brown color that we used when we filled in the bottom of the front layer of petals. Going to use mostly the darker yellow shade plus a little bit of that burnt umber. Kind of mix that around till you're happy with it, and you do want to see a definite difference between the two shades because they are going to be right beside each other. Gonna start with our first empty space there, and we're going to go with the same petal shape we've been using, but we're going to start where the petal is the widest because that's going to be the first part that shows since it is under the other petals. We're going to bring it to that point and bring it back down to match the other side, and you'll see that it is the same shape on the end. Bring it out about the same amount or the same length as the other petals as well. We are going to fill the top part of that petal with that dark yellow that we've made with the yellow and the burnt umber. And then we are going to get a little bit of brown on the brush, get a little bit darker shade, and fill it in down in that kind of crease there. So you want the darkest part to be under there because that's where the least amount of lining is going to be, and that way that petal will appear as though it is under the other, that top layer of petals. Make it look more realistic. You can definitely see the difference in the shade there. Just want to smooth out that transition as we have been and fill it in with that darker shade. If you're not completely happy with how it looks, we are going to go put a We're going to put a lighter shade on the top after that dries a little bit, so this isn't how it's going to look in the end. So if you're not happy with it, just wait a little bit. We're going to revisit this part. So you can see that that one definitely is darker, and that is going to be really important to make the flower look more full and dimensional. Moving on to that next empty space. Just turn it however you need to. I know with this petal shape, I really need to be right on top of it and have them all facing the same way whenever I work on it. So that definitely makes it easier for me to have it in that radial, that circular pattern. So feel free to move that however you need to. We're just going to do the same thing. Bring it out where it was the widest to the point and back down to the other side and fill it in on the top first. You do always want the darker shade to be where there is the least amount of light. So down in that crease between the petals is where the light's not going to touch it as much, and we're going to have that shadow. Really important just to make the flower look more realistic. We're going to act the same way that we did with the front petals when they go off of the canvas. Just imagine what they would look like if it did continue all the way off, and just pretend that you're going to do that full shape, and then that way it'll look natural the way that it does actually end on the canvas. Now with these pieces where we're really not going to have that much of a petal shape for the darker spots, we're just going to fill it in like we normally would with mostly the darker shades, since that's the only part that would be showing. And that way it does make the flower look more full, and we know that there will be petals over there. Just, you know, it's cut off. That's just how it is. So with these bottom spots where there is nothing going on, we're going to go ahead and fill that in with our darker shade that we use for the back petals. That way it's going to make the flower look more full. It is going to get covered up later by our center that we're going to do with all that dotting, but you don't want that just a blank white spot there. You want something so it does appear more full. So just go ahead and fill in that bottom, all those little bottom spots, because that's where the petal would be continuing to anyway. Okay, now once you have all those in there, it will look more finished, if you will. And that's what we're going to have so far. Going to do some more rinsing. Make sure you really get in there rinsing that out, because we don't want our colors to mix any more than what we're doing intentionally. And when you're drying it off, that's a good way to check and see if there is any paint left on the paintbrush. I'm going to grab that angled brush once again, and we're going to grab our lighter yellow shade. And our white. Going to get that out. You don't need a lot of white for this, so don't get too much out. You don't want to waste it, but you can always add more later, so just get a little bit of that white out for now. I've got a bubble in mine. Pop. Okay, so we're going to double load our brush again with the light yellow and the white. See how it's marbled on there? And we're going to go through and add some detail work and some highlights to our front petals only. So just kind of follow the shape of the flower as you have been, and just add some streaks of that lighter color. That'll bring some more definition to it. And the highlights, they really do make a difference. I've got some white right on the edge there, and that will give me the chance to do some real just plain white streaks. But you don't want to go overboard with those, not a whole lot. See, there's already a difference between that and the other petals, kind of brings it more to life. Oh, little dance break there. You're going to do the same thing, mix that yellow and the white right on your brush, and then kind of let it end up on the canvas as it will as with each stroke. It's going to be different. Just continue around and bring those strokes around the same way the petal shape would be. That is the most important thing because that will make the definition of the petals look round. In the same way, you just continue it off of the edge of the canvas as you would if it was actually there. With these bottom ones, you want to just put not a whole lot of the light color because most of that light color of the petal is not going to be on the canvas itself. But just a little bit. You don't want it to leave those out. They do need to look like the other ones, but not nearly as much white. Get some paint on your hands, that's okay too. Okay, here's our last one. Gonna add our lighter shades on there. Look at that. You can really see it starting to come to life, you guys. So I do want some more highlight on the very edge of these, so I'm going to take the white just a little bit on the very edge of my brush. Just a little bit. Little bit. There we go. And we're just going to do very light, thin streaks of white. Just on the outer edge of those, the very ends of the petals, where the light will really be hitting it the most. Kind of bring those streaks down, follow the shape of the petal as always. See, that white really makes it pop. You don't want to go overboard with this, just a little goes a long way, especially with highlights. Check it out. Love it. I'm going to set aside that angled brush and get back out our clean oval brush. And I did kind of overshadow that darker shade on the front petals a little bit, so I'm going to go back and fill those in a little bit more. Mostly yellow, just a little bit of brown, and just kind of put just a couple of streaks in there to balance out the shades again. See, just a little bit. And just at the very bottom, you don't want to go up too far and then have to come back in with the white again. If you do, that's fine. You be the judge of that. But just put a little bit of that dark brownish yellow, like really golden brown toward the bottom to even that back out. Don't want to be too whitewashed. Just add a little bit more brown at the bottom there, and much more balance. I am loving it. We do want to grab our black now. We're going to work on the center. Put that aside. We're going to use that later probably, so never throw your paint away till the very end because you're going to keep revisiting the same colors. Get a good bit of black on there, and we're going to grab our oval brush. We're going to start with a, 1.5 inches, kind of like a little bit more than your first thumb knuckle in width there for the very center. And we're going to practice some stippling. So just get a little bit of paint on the edge of your brush and kind of just dab in little circles of that black. You don't want to just paint it flat. We do want to have the texture too, because that's where all the seeds are and everything. But we want to fill that in as densely as we can. You want to make sure that it is about the same width from the edge on all sides. And just adjust as you need to. It doesn't need to be perfect. Gonna grab our white again, just get a little bit of that. And without rinsing, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do a ring of this white. So don't rinse your brush, make sure the black's still on there, and get just a little bit of white on the edge, just a little bit. Do a couple practice ones and you can see it does mix together with each little mark that you make. So we're just going to do the outer ring of that first circle that we made with the white and black mixing. You don't want to be too stark white. Just a thin layer of the white around that circle. That's what we're going to have so far. I can never stop adjusting. And I get to the point where it's like, okay, you got to leave it alone. Oh, see, it's way too stark there, so I'm going to go back in and kind of dilute that white a little bit. Going to grab that burnt umber to go along with our black. So we're kind of going to double load our brush with the brown, with our burnt umber and our black to create a really dark brown shade. We want the middle part to be just black so it's more concentrated. And now that we get to the outer part of the center here, we want it to be a little bit more mixed of a color between the black and the brown, not as concentrated as the center because it's not the center. We're just going to fill that in with all those dots. It does take some time and your hand might get a little bit tired, but it's definitely worth it for the effect that it creates with all that texture. Just kind of go about your business. Going to add it all the way to the edge there and kind of fill in the very bottom of the petals, because if you think about a sunflower, it is, you know, it's not going to be flat. So the middle part's going to be rounded and it is going to kind of reach over the edge of those petals a little bit. So kind of fill in the spaces between those just a little bit. Going to grab our orange. Now we're using the most minimal amount of this, just a little bit of orange. We're going to grab our brush. See how we got all the spikes on the end? Just get the orange on the very edge of that brush, and we're going to do kind of another outer circle away from that white of just the orange mixing in. And it's okay that the black and brown are still wet, so that makes it really mixed together. You can see it just adds another layer of dimension. You don't want to bring it all the way to the edge, just kind of keep it in that center area there. See, that really does bring it to life. And we're not even done yet. It's going to look even better. I did want to go back in with the black and kind of mute the orange a little bit. You don't want it to be, it's kind of a take and give type of thing. Just kind of muddle that just a little bit, but you don't want it to mix completely back in with the background. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get back out our yellow and go with the darker shade with our oval brush. And I did just want to add another layer, a lighter layer to the back petals that we have. You can see it just brings a little bit more life to the back of those, but we don't want to bring it all the way down. We still need that darker shade on the bottom part, so it does appear that it's behind that first layer. But we just want to doctor up the edge a little bit, make it a little bit lighter. With those corner pieces, don't worry about adding that lighter shade because the part where we would add that wouldn't be on the canvas anyway. Dance break. So we are going to go back, and now that that's dried a little bit, we're going to finalize the edges of that center. Just kind of look where it needs a little bit more. Doctor it up just a little bit. Okay, so we're going to rinse our brush and completely dry it out. And we're going to go and add some highlights. It's my favorite part. Just a little bit of the white on the edge of your oval brush. That might even be too much, just a tiny bit. We're going to go back and add some of our highlighted white spots. So just a couple in the center. Just real tiny, just little touches of the white. See, it's already making it pop. I love it. I'm going to add some to that outer ring of white as well. And I'm going to add some to the very edge. All different shapes and sizes. We love it. Just a couple in that center part, but not a whole lot. I think I might have added too much, but we can revisit that when it dries and paint over a couple of them. It's no big deal. Gonna work on the background for now, so we're gonna grab that blue. Gonna get a fresh plate out too. Make sure your oval brush is in the water at this point too. Gonna do this whole background with just that blue with really pretty contrast, and of course it helps that it's blue and gold. Take your angled brush and just load that up with the blue. Don't have to worry about mixing with anything else. Just kind of do some varying strokes there. You don't want it to be a flat color because the flower has so much dimension. You don't want it to be too stark of a difference. So just kind of move your brush on there, kind of see what movements feel natural to you, and just fill in all of the parts that we can for now without getting close to the petals because you got to do a lot of detail for that section. Okay, now that you've filled in everything you can without getting close to the petals, we're going to grab this is where the angled part of the brush really comes in handy. Just fill up the very edge of it, and we're just got to be really careful. I know this is kind of daunting. Just be very careful and just kind of fill in your blue right up to the edge of those petals. And it's okay if you get blue paint on your hand. You're definitely going to see mine here in a second. Just fill it in right up to that edge. Make it really pop. Check it out. All right. So you really use that angle to your advantage. Make sure you add that texture up to the petal. You don't want it to be just the flat right where the petal is. You want it to match the rest of the background. Just going to very carefully fill in all of the edges there. I know you can do it. It's a little bit daunting, but you can do it, I'm sure. Just make sure not to put too much paint on your brush at once, and then of course we want to use that angle to our advantage. See, we got blue paint on our hands, we love it. That's what it's about. Make sure you remember to take your time with this too. You don't have a time limit with it. Just be careful, take as much time as you need, making sure you get all the detail in there and just really getting those edges. So now that we've got most of our background done, we're going to go and revisit those white spots that I did. I do feel like I put too many of those. So I'm going to take my black and burnt umber together and just cover up not all of the spots, but a good bit of them. Because less is more with these highlights, and it's that thing where I got to stop messing with stuff. So if you feel like you've added too many, just take the time to revisit that and see if you want to cover any of them up. See, that's much better, a lot more toned down. So that's what our finished flower looks like. Isn't she beautiful? I think that painting in the edge of the canvas is very important. It just makes it look more finished. So what we're going to do, this is optional, you don't have to do this, but I like to, so I'm going to go ahead and fill in the blue where the blue will reach, and we're going to leave the yellow spots where the petal would come off of the canvas. Going to leave that open to add yellow in later so it looks more natural, I guess you could say. Just fill in all that blue, kind of let your mind wander. This is an easy part. Make sure you leave those yellow spots out so you can fill it in with the petal color. Okay, gonna go in with our oval brush and grab our darker shade of yellow to fill in the edges here. I'm not gonna worry about mixing the yellow. That's just not really necessary if it's just going to be on the edge. So just fill that in at the bottom wherever the yellow is that you left those spots earlier. Just bring it up to meet that blue. If you do get some on the front where it does kind of cover up the shading that or the different colors that you did, you can wipe it off with a paper towel because that will be dry by now, so you can definitely wipe off that top wet layer of any of the just plain yellow you've put on there that's unmixed. Look at that. Ooh! Alrighty guys, we are completely done. See all that dimension that we've got in there? It looks so whole, having the edges painted too. I just think that makes it look so crisp and clean. I can't believe we just did that together. Look how pretty that is. I just cannot get over it. Thank you so much for joining me for doing this. I really hope you had as much fun as I did.